Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to the next session of the ongoing knowledge series. The topic for today is in front of you, that is a Gaganyaan mission of ISRO. In this video, we will be discussing specifically what makes the Gaganyaan mission so special, why ISRO has been trying to ensure that this mission becomes a success. If it does, what will set India apart as compared to the other nations, and specifically what are the provisions of this mission, what are we using, the machinery and all other things we will be discussing in this session today. So I welcome you all and remind you that space technology is one of those topics from which you see a question very often, both in the prelims examination of the civil services as well as in the mains examination as well. So make sure that you understand not just the Gaganyaan mission but all other initiatives taken in the sphere of science and technology, specifically space and defense, because they appear very frequently in the examination. Now before we begin, just a request, don't forget to share this particular video with your other aspirant friends as well who are preparing for the civil services examination. Now, as I said, Gaganyaan is a mission that will be undertaken by ISRO, that is the Indian Space Research Organization. Now, there is a particular reason why is it that this particular mission of ISRO has made so much news when ISRO is anyways known to have very successful track record of sending several missions. The reason is that it will be the first time ever that ISRO will try a manned mission. So there will be a manned mission, means there will be human beings, astronauts that will be sent to the space for the first time through an ISRO mission. And that is what makes it special. That is what makes it unique as compared to the other missions that we have had in the past. So the plan is, in the Gaganyaan mission, there will be a total of 3 flights that will be sent into the orbit. Out of those 3, 2 will be unmanned flights and 1 will be a human space flight. Now, as you also know, when human beings are involved, when astronauts, human life is involved, then obviously the mission becomes much more critical and the mission becomes much more trickier, because then you can't afford any failure or any glitch in that mission. And that is why we are taking a long time, and in fact, the timeline for Gaganyaan mission has been delayed multiple times. More specifically due to the pandemic, because the world came to a standstill and the ongoing developments actually had to be stopped. But the Gaganyaan mission has been delayed considerably, and that makes sense because we have to prioritize the safety in such kind of a mission. As I said, the Gaganyaan mission will have the orbital module, which will have 3 Indian astronauts, including a woman. That is a very important part of information. It will circle the Earth at a low Earth orbit, which is called LEO in short, at an altitude of 300 to 400 kilometers from the Earth for 5 to 7 days. So when it was initially announced that such a mission will be taken up, the first news that we got was that it will be at least a 7-day stay for these astronauts in the space. Then when the later news came in, we were told that it will be at least a 5-day stay. So there is still not exact clarity on that, and that is why we are considering that the stay would be somewhere between 5 and 7 days, depending upon the other conditions that prevail at the time of the mission. Now, if you can actually see this infographic, it will give you a lot of detail about how this mission is being planned and it will be executed. Just like other missions taken by ISRO, this will also be extremely cost effective. It is expected that the entire cost of the mission shall be less than rupees 10,000 crore, which is much lesser as compared to other such similar missions which are taken by other nations around the world. Also, the launch now is expected to be in 2022, and this mission will take off from Sriharikota using ISRO's heaviest and the most powerful rocket, that is a GSLV Mach 3. It is expected that within 16 minutes, this will reach the low Earth orbit, and as you know, after this, the one part of this module will be recovered because it will splash down in the Arabian Sea. So this is the entire planning of the Gaganyaan mission as has been released by ISRO. So we will be recovering a part of the module that we are sending up. As I said, 5 to 7 days is the expected time period. Now, as I said in the beginning, in the introduction part of this video, if India does manage to execute that, it will make India a participant in a very, very exclusive club, a very exclusive group of nations which have managed to ensure that they actually send humans into the space. This club includes the US, Russia and China. India can become the 4th nation to actually successfully have such a human space flight program. Now, there are some other details of the mission that you must understand. The payload of this mission will have a crew module, as the name suggests. This will be the spacecraft which carries human beings, that is the astronauts. Also, there will be a service module which will be powered by 2 liquid propellant engines. Over here also, you have to understand that when we actually have such kind of missions, when we actually try and send these things into the space, there are actually 2 types of propellants that are used. There is solid fuel propellant and there is a liquid fuel propellant. And there are very, very clear distinctions between the two. For example, solid fuel propellant is usually used to give a much higher thrust. When you are sending something much more heavier into the space, when you have a much higher payload, that is when you usually use solid fuel, at least at the first stage, to give you that initial thrust so that you can actually escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. The problem with using a solid fuel in any particular stage is that the maneuvering of that particular module, the particular spacecraft becomes very, very difficult. That is why at the first stage, at the launch of stage, usually you will see that most of the spacecraft use the solid fuel. Liquid fuel, on the other hand, allows a spacecraft to be maneuvered, to change the directions, to alter directions, but the thrust that is given by liquid fuel is usually lower as compared to solid fuel. This is where the cryogenic technique actually comes into the picture. As you know, cryogenic technique uses liquid fuel at extremely low temperatures, but it gives a lot of thrust comparable to a solid fuel, and that is why it becomes extremely important. In this Gaganyaan mission, we will be using 2 propellant engines or 2 liquid propellant engines. They will also be equipped with emergency escape and emergency mission abort, which is specifically required whenever you have a human flight. As I said earlier, what sets this mission apart is that this Gaganyaan mission will be a first attempt by ISRO to send humans into space. And when you do that, the cost and the value of being safe increases many folds, and that is why you have to give an escape mission as well. The launch will be used, or launch will use the GSLV Mark III, which is also said to be the launch vehicle Mark III. This is a 3-stage heavy lift launch vehicle, in fact the heaviest rocket that ISRO actually has and continuously uses for its missions. These are some of the other details of the mission. As I said, the heaviest of the rockets will be used. The project was first announced by the Prime Minister in 2018, and since then it has faced multiple delays, not because of what happened at ISRO, but mainly because of the pandemic and the global slowdown. Also, the other interesting part is the government is planning that we will not call them astronauts. Rather, these people who will go to space in the Gaganyaan mission will be called the Vyomnauts, where the word Vyom actually translates to space in Sanskrit language. When we used to be kids, we used to have these comics called Captain Vyom. So there was a hero in space. So the Vyom word actually has been used earlier as well in Indian culture. So they will be called Vyomnauts. Now, also, as you know, India in the past has had a lot of collaboration with Russia, specifically when it comes to initiatives in the space sector, initiatives taken by ISRO and other organizations as well. If you know, first Indian astronaut also to go to space was also through the Russian mission. Mr. Rakesh Sharma, who went to space, was actually on the Russian spacecraft. So India's collaboration with Russia in the field of space goes a long way back. Over here, that is why continuing that particular tradition, the Indian government has been planning to give training to some of the Indian astronauts or Vyomnauts in Russia to ensure that they are trained well enough to handle the challenges that they will face in space. That is why in June 2019, the Human Space Flight Center of ISRO and the Russian government-owned Glavkosmos signed a contract for training, which includes Russia supporting in the selection of the candidates, medical examinations, space training, etc. Now, going to space, remaining there for a few days involves a lot of challenges on its own, and that is why you cannot expect randomly to pick out people and send them to space. Thus, there will be a proper training that will be held. Even after that training, only a handful of those people who are expected to perform well in those challenges will be chosen. ISRO will take help from the Russian government also to choose these candidates and see how they perform. The candidates will study in detail the systems of Soyuz manned spaceship, that is a spaceship that is used by Russia frequently, and will be trained in the short-term weightlessness mode aboard the Russian aircraft, that is 76 MDK. Now, it looks very fascinating when you see any videos of people in space. They have weightlessness, they actually fly inside the aircraft. If you saw recently, there were multiple private companies also that took up such missions. For example, the Virgin company, that is of Richard Branson. Then we also had a company of Jeff Bezos. They took up these kind of missions, kind of space tourism, where they went to space, explored weightlessness just for a few minutes, and then they came back. So it looks very fascinating when we see those, but it requires a lot of training to ensure that you are able to sustain your body in those situations. And that is why a special training will also be given to the selected candidates, how to deal with weightlessness, the impact that it would have on the human body. Now, there are a lot of records of people who have come back from the space, that is astronauts from US, other nations, who have said on record that once they come back to Earth, their body takes many days to actually come back to normal. So it is not a very fun thing. It might be a fun thing to see on the video, but for people who are actually involved there, it does take quite a bit of toll on their body. And that is why it is a pretty challenging task to select the people who will be going to space under this mission and have them particularly trained on this. Now, as I said, Soyuz is a Russian spacecraft which carries people and supplies to and fro the International Space Station, that is the ISS, where Russia is also one of the parties. The other aircraft that is mentioned here, that is 76 MDK aircraft, that is, it's a military transport plane which is specially designed for parabolic flights of training astronauts and space tourists. As you can see, Russia has had a lot of infrastructure being built before India to train people who actually go to space. And that is why we will be leveraging that relationship that we have with Russia to ensure that our selected candidates, the astronaut, the Vyomnauts also get the required training in order to be ready for the space journey. There is one more thing that is happening. ISRO is not just taking help from Russia. ISRO has also been in talks with multiple doctors to develop human-rated spacecraft. As I said, this is going to be a new challenge of its kind because ISRO has never taken up such a mission where human beings are being sent to space. And that is why we have also seen news stories that specialized doctors have also been roped in to see what impact would we actually have on the bodies of these astronauts when they go to space. Now, there is also a lot of significance attached to this mission. Whenever ISRO carries out any mission, be it highly successful missions such as the Mars orbital mission, there is one particular kind of criticism that comes in for ISRO. That criticism is that people say that the same money could have been used for other things. We believe that same money could have been used for, let's say, feeding poor people. Same money could have been used for building infrastructure. But by that argument, no country will be able to progress. That argument does not hold true because there is a specific budget given for every single thing. And you can't expect that all other priorities will be going away and their money will be used just for one specific social development purposes. In case of Gaganyaan also, although there are some kind of criticisms that this money or this power of ISRO should have been used for some other good, but the reality is there are a lot of significance attached to this Gaganyaan mission. For example, having these kind of missions successfully implemented enhances the global image, the global progress of India. Not just this, if you actually know, ISRO has a commercial unit called Antrix. Now, what is this exactly? See, when ISRO does these kind of missions, be it the Mars orbital mission, or hopefully they will also go ahead and successfully undertake the Gaganyaan mission, it actually establishes an image of ISRO that we can take up a lot of difficult initiatives. Thus, if some other nations, they want to launch any of the satellites, or they want any of the help of ISRO in any of their missions, then they can actually use this and they can employ ISRO for that through Antrix. Antrix is actually commercial arm of ISRO through which ISRO actually earns money. You would have seen that a few years back, ISRO made a world record by sending over 100 satellites in space all at once. These kind of world records that we make by sending hundreds of satellites at once, all of these are done not just for having something to achieve over here, but also this is done so that we can actually show to the entire world that we are able to achieve these kind of missions, and if the other people or the other nation in the world want ISRO's help, then they can employ ISRO by giving them money. So ISRO is not just an agency that undertakes these missions. ISRO is also a technology, or is also a company that actually earns government the money through Antrix. So that is where it actually helps. So these kind of missions increase ISRO's standing throughout the world. Also, it will help improving industrial growth. As I said, more money will come up, more collaborations will happen. Government also recently announced new initiatives such as in space for more privatization and more private collaborations with ISRO. As you know, space has also been one of those areas where in the past few years, some private sector initiatives have come up. There are a lot of startups in India specifically that are building their own versions of satellites and asking for ISRO's help to launch those satellites. So we do see increased private participation also, which is happening because of all these successful missions undertaken by ISRO. It will help for developing technology for social benefits in the future as well, and will also improve India's standing to build an alternative to International Space Station. Now, International Space Station is kind of a small room that has been built in space by multiple nations coming together. India is not a part of it. Now, recently you would have seen when the Ukraine-Russia war started, there was a dispute about this International Space Station also, because Russia was supposed to bring back the astronauts from the International Space Station back to Earth. One of the astronauts was American, some of them were Russian, and Russia initially refused that we will not bring back the American astronauts because there are sanctions being imposed on us. So the International Space Station that we have is a collaborative effort of multiple nations, and we need other alternatives to that as well. We can't just depend on a few nations, and that is where India also comes into the picture. If we develop initiatives and we undertake missions such as a Gaganyaan, we can show that we will also be able to build such kind of missions. This is everything that you needed to know about the Gaganyaan mission of ISRO. Let me quickly take up a few questions. One question that I have is, what is the criteria for Vyomnauts? That criteria has not been made public so far. Obviously, the people who are working in the space industry, people who do undergo that training, people who excel in that training, only those will be chosen for that. Then I have a question, what is the difference between Antrix and in space? Pretty good question. So Antrix, as I said, is a commercial arm of ISRO. So what they usually do is, if let's say a smaller nation wants India or ISRO to send a satellite on their behalf, they will contact Antrix and Antrix will take money and then do the service. In space, on the other hand, is specifically to involve private sector also and collaborate with private sector within India mainly. to have private sector companies coming up and having collaborations with ISRO to also ensure that the space technology becomes better and there are a lot more research and collaborations that go on. That is what InSpace would do. So the purpose of InSpace is not mainly to earn money, it is mainly to increase collaboration between ISRO and the private sector that is working in this particular field. Antrix is mainly the commercial arm of ISRO that provides ISRO services to other nations at a cost. These are the main questions that we had here in this topic. I really hope this topic was helpful and you will be able to solve any questions on Gaganyaan mission if they appear in the examinations. Thank you so much for watching. Just reminding you, do hit the subscribe button on Byjus IAS YouTube channel if you have not done so till now. Do like this video if you have not liked till now, and also share this with your other aspirant friends as well. Thank you so much for watching.